My knowledge of the MCU looks about the same as when Thanos snapped half the world out of existence. It's full of dust. There's nothing there. I've seen That I Remember, slightly, from the main MCU, Spider-Man Homecoming, Guardians of the Galaxy, Iron Man, Thor, The Avengers, Age of Ultron, and Civil War. So I've technically seen all of the Avengers movies besides Infinity War. A lot of these movies have much together in my mind besides Spider-Man and Guardians of the Galaxy. And I'll still die on my tidy hill that Tobey Maguire was the best Spider-Man, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. Endgame just came out and I bought tickets to opening night. I'm seated front row and I want to see if I can explain how this whole cinematic universe happened with my brief knowledge of 7 movies and the memes that have circled the internet the past few years.
Ant-Man! You need to slip into Thanos' asshole! Quick! Quick! And then you need to expand.
Into his asshole.
You need to shrink and then go into his asshole and then expand so that he'll die. Ant-Man, you need to do it now!
I've returned home from the movie theater after craning my neck for 3 hours. But between you and me, it takes a lot to entertain me even in the slightest movie-wise. And this did a pretty good job of doing that. Before I talk about Endgame itself, I need to try and piece together what happened before this movie. I feel like I watched the right movies and kept up well with the memes to understand most of the quips and references, but I'm still missing big chunks of what actually happened, so here we go. All the main Avengers had their starter movies. Maybe Infinity Stones were involved, but that seems more like second and third movie stuff. They all team up to fight someone with a blue laser in the sky. Thor deals with an Infinity Stone or Infinity Goo that slipped into Natalie Portman. Thanos takes more stones, probably during Guardians of the Galaxy, because his daughters are the green and blue lady? Those are too many colors to be circling one family. And the Avengers team up again and makes this red dude who has 0.5% personality. Paul Rudd sneaks into the picture and has a movie for himself. Then Captain America and Tony Stark have a big boys fight where they can't agree and they end up fighting each other because they're all stubborn babies. Benedict Cumberbatch has a movie where he does mind-bending shit and gives a stone to Thanos to see what happens.
Lol.
Guardians of the Galaxy do more hijinks which might involve Thanos. Let's just assume that everything involves Thanos, since that's more than not the case. We get a couple movies, then Infinity War hits, where everyone almost gets killed with the stones, and half the population, Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good's the whole thing. Iron Man works with the Blue Lady because now she's changed her ways, and they end up stranded on a spaceship whirling through space. Ant-Man and the Wasp do some quantum stuff, apparently, which leads to Brie Larson finally entering the picture, because she had better things to do up until this point, which leads to Endgame, where Tony Stark is about to die, but Brie Larson snarkily swoops in without saying a word and saves them. All the Avengers find out where Thanos went after he snapped his fingies, and turns out he just wants to chill in a garden for the rest of his life. He also destroyed all the Infinity Stones so he wouldn't be tempted, which honestly is a pretty rad thing of him to do. You know, besides the whole killing people thing. And now he's in retirement. But of course the Avengers show up, kick the shit out of him, and beat his head in. Real cool, Thor. Real cool. Then we jump to 5 years later, where the world is starting to piece itself back together. But, the love of my life died. We need to get them back somehow. Pfft, pathetic. Bunch of babies. Some of the Avengers have moved on, like Mr. Stark has a family now with Gwyneth Paltrow, where their daughter is probably named Pineapple, and has some odd fatherly love for Spider-Man. Which, I mean, who wouldn't? Tom Holland has some pinchable cheeks. And I'm not talking about the ones on his face. Mark Ruffalo is constantly Hulk now and taking pictures with fans, which seems like a douchey thing to do, but we'll just assume it's because he wants to spread positivity in the bleaks of New York. Captain America is running a small group therapy for what looks like war veterans, but who the heck knows? It's not important because he stops doing it to make out with Iron Man. Because, surprise, Ant-Man was busy doing quantum shit and not dying. Which is neat. Paul Rudd thinks they can time travel, so they go to Iron Man, but he's like, no, I can't do it. I need to be there for Pineapple. And my wife has an egg in her vagina. So they go to Mark Ruffalo, and he's like, no, just because I wear glasses doesn't mean I'm a genius and everything. But they try without Mr. Stark, and Paul Rudd's tacos get ruined. So Iron Man finally decides to ask his computer to do the work for him, so he can act like a genius, and then approaches Captain America and says, okay, I'm over my animosity for you because you got an ass that won't quit, and we need that. I need that. They go to recruit more good guys, but it turns out Hawkeye is busy being in an anime. And Thor got fat. Haha, so funny. That's his whole personality for the movie. And there's Fortnite. They have Fortnite. There's Fortnite in the movie. Big heckin' yikes. But to get everyone together and do a bunch of time travel talk and diss on Back to the Future until they all jump into this time portal. They split into teams to get the Infinity Stones back so they can save their friends. Whoopee! A bunch of hijinks ensues and callbacks to the previous movies we've seen. They send the blue lady who talks too deep for her voice range into the place where Thanos is, which is just genius on her part because her past evil self goes back to the future with the Avengers and brings Thanos to the future. And they're a bunch of idiots having her go on that mission. But whatever, they need conflict. So the other Avengers do their missions. Hulk gets blasted into being Mark Ruffalo. Hawkeye and Black Widow fight like babies to sacrifice themselves because Hawkeye loves her the most, but he has a wife and kids? I don't know. They could be polyamorous. We shouldn't judge. Iron Man, Paul Rudd, and Captain America hang out with Nazis for a second, but they fuck up their mission because Daddy Loki stole the Infinity Stone. So they have to time travel again to get it back, which leads to Tony Stark meeting his dad before he was born and Captain America seeing the love of his life, but doesn't interact with her. Asshole. But we did get Captain America fighting with himself, which was epic. Oh, and Thor goes to his kingdom before his mom died and Natalie Portman gets attacked by a raccoon. Whatever. But huzzah! They get all the stones back and promise to return them to their original timeline when they're done. So Hulk puts on the glove and snaps his fingers and the boys are back. But uh-oh, Thanos' ass cheeks clap back. He says typical vague bad guy stuff, like, I am inevitable. And a big fight ensues and they get close to heckin' dying, but Brie Larson finally shows up again and does some damage, but then gets whacked back by Thanos. You'd think for someone who is the Superman of Marvel would be stronger than Thanos.
Is that like a personal attack or something? Or...
Iron Man finally gets hold of the Infinity Stones, saying, he's Iron Man. And snap! Thanos is dead. But so is Robert Downey Jr. because his contract is up. So now the world is restored. Tom Holland is back in school. Hawkeye has his family back. Thor is hanging out with Chris Pratt because he gave up his kingdom. Captain America goes to return the Infinity Stones to their correct timeline, but finally talks to his girl and has a life with her. But now he handed his shield to this dude named Sam, so now he can reboot everything again and start anew. Yay! Rejoice for the billions of dollars being shoved into pockets. There is a God after all, and his name is Thanos.